Hey ladies, I'm Pidge.
And I'm Mowen.
Welcome to the Night Shift Court podcast. We are two shift-working fantasy book lovers and love nothing more than leaving reality behind for a bookish adventure.
Join us as we go under the mountain to discuss our favourite fantasy fiction tales and the authors behind them.
Come with us to explore the stories, one shift at a time. Hi ladies.
Hi, welcome back.
I love that it's a surprise for me too.
Yeah,
every time.
it's a surprise for me too. Because like in the seconds before, it's like almost a little panic. So what am I going to do this time? There's only so many variations.
It's fine. I love them all.
Haven't worn this for a little while.
Yeah.
Who's interested in some merch? Let me know.
I'm interested in some merch.
Yeah, we need to do some more, don't we?
Yeah, I must admit we've been too busy focusing on recording and getting better at that too.
That's right. Yeah.
So-
No, we're learning as we go, and we love that you're here for the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're here, you're here.
This episode is chapters 41 to 45.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. This is the part of the story that imagery really comes in big. I find that these next few chapters are like slowing the pace down to like really explain who and what and where. And I love it because if you're a fan of things that have been created into motion pictures or shows based on books, this is the part where fans froth.
Lots of drama.
Yeah.
Love it. Love a bit of drama.
So it's meeting time.
It is, yes. Well, before the meeting, in fact, the next 2 days after Feyre's breakfast with Nesta, filled with correspondence with the other High Lords. There were issues with where the meeting was going to be held, but it's finally agreed, to be hosted in the Dawn Court.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is it's as close to the centre of Prithian as you can get, except for winter, but Callias has said absolutely Meg to anyone coming into his territory. He's very defensive of his people after the horrors of Amarantha's crimes.
Yeah.
As you'll remember, there was about a dozen Wintercourt children that were slaughtered under her command. So
Very sore point.
yeah, so he's said absolutely not. So Thesan,
Yep.
High Lord of Dawncourt, has agreed to host.
Yes.
What a gracious host, hosting all these delicate little flowers that are the men of Prithian.
I do love the Thesan. Every High Lord at this point has responded except for Tampon.
And Autumn?
Well, I think that even now we know that Beron's coming.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair.
So Amryn says Nesta's very close to figuring out how to seal the holes in the wall now.
Yeah. Yes.
This is exciting.
But she doesn't hang around. She excuses herself to go and try and figure out some more about the Book of Breathings.
Yeah.
And I'll quote, she excuses herself to go and read until her eyes are bleeding.
Relatable.
Yeah. After night shift.
Yes.
I feel like on like between 10 and 12 hours.
Yeah.
Everything I have to read feels like my eyes are bleeding trying to read it.
Yeah. And you still continue.
Yeah. On we go.
On we move.
Till the end of shift. Rhys finally decides to join them, and Feyre recalls how Rhys had recently took her to a room a level above the library in the House of Wind to select the crown that she now wears and will wear to the meeting. She describes the chamber and the wealth that she sees in the chamber being tens and thousands of years worth of treasure.
It's like, you know, a trove of goodies. Like you can imagine the crowiest of all the crows that are like,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm nosy,
The
so
shiny.
I'd want to look through it all.
same. And can you imagine like the intricate jewels that there would be? Like it would be next level.
Belonged to who, however
Yeah.
many centuries ago.
And Feyre's sort of a bit dismissive about the fact that they belong to her because she just still has that unworthy feeling, and she's like, are you sure? Like, this doesn't really feel right. She's the high fucking lady of the fucking night court.
Yeah, choose your crown, bitch.
Yeah, just wear it.
Chin up or the crown slips.
Yes.
She lets the crown call to her like she did with the jewellery in the weaver's cottage. And so she now wears this beautiful, intricate crown, and she describes it. And you can, without me even describing it, I feel like you could picture what it was that she has chosen.
Yeah.
But just before they go to leave for the Dawn Court, they're all standing in the foyer of the townhouse. That seems to be the place where the winnowing occurs in most situations. And Nesta appears at the top of the stairs. Cassian is also there, which, if we will recall, this is the first time she's seeing Cassian since he's been back from war.
Yes, and he's not a mirage.
No, indeed he is not. But he gives her a once-over glance and then just turns around to say something to Azriel. So I was very deflated by that welcome to Nesta. But he fixes it. It's fine.
It serves a purpose.
It does.
He wants her to come to him, and she fucking does.
She does, yeah. So she first approaches Feyre and says, "You look beautiful." And Feyre's all flustered by that because if you remember that Nesta is the height of beautiful elegance as a fae.
Devastating.
Yeah, nothing compares to her. So she's quite taken by that. Nesta wears a gown of the darkest blue, but no jewellery, no adornments at all on her, no hair clips or pins or any of that nature.
Yeah,
but she still looks stunning. Oh, I barely ever wear hair clips or pins. But Feyre says, "Why are you dressed like that?" And she announces, "I'm coming with you."
She's coming too.
Yeah.
I love this because she's finally grown a set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had talked last episode about her questioning Feyre and how she went off to war by herself and how she's going to this meeting, and Nesta was curious, and she's obviously had a little sleep and decided that she's going to help out too.
She's involved.
Nesta explains that she's watched Feyre be brave because it was the right thing to do, and overall Nesta cares about the mortals, and as Feyre said, people need help. So Nesta's decided to step up and help. Rhys steps forward and actually offers Nesta the position of human emissary to the mortal land because Feyre's left that position vacant.
She's resigned.
She has resigned.
Yeah.
She accepts and Rhys just says, "Welcome to court."
Yeah. So it's a sweet exchange because Rhys is like, "Want the job?"
Yeah,
sort of thing.
yes.
And it's really cute. And I think that Nesta finally realises that she has actually a place in the family.
Yes.
Not just the court, but I think she's kind of coming into that realisation. She's said she wants to come to the meeting. She's now accepted this position as emissary. And I think she feels a bit sort of like she owes them something because even Lucien's gone, to do something.
To do something, yeah.
And Lucien's not anything really other than the mate of Elaine, which we don't know if they're actually going to accept either of them. So, Nesta wants to tell her story now. She thinks that her story in the eyes of the other High Lords has power and has merit to make everyone realise that they actually need to band together to fight Highburn.
Cassian gestures at Rhys's wings and says there's no going back now because he's revealing Valaris and his wings because remembering no other High Lord knows that he's Illyrian or half Illyrian. And Rhys says, "I figure it's time for the world to know who really has the biggest wingspan."
I love it.
If you'll remember the conversation about wingspan alluding to the size of other parts.
Yeah. I actually don't think I ever realised that Rhys's half Illyrian status was a secret. I don't think that had kind of settled in my head. So it's even rereading it, I was like, oh yeah, no one knows.
Well, he hid them from Amarantha when he was captured during the war.
Yeah.
And he had mentioned that it took all of his power to not reveal them. And so now the other High Lords are finding out. Again, heavily disagree with this decision, remain anonymous. Just as they're about to winnow, they sort of pause in the winnowing. So they're shrouded in darkness, but they watch Cassian approach Nesta. Yes. And he lifts her chin and growls, "Hello, Nesta." And she says, "You didn't come to ...
Yep.
She was going to say something.
Yep.
And he says, next time, emissary, I'll come say hello.
I love it. It's the most satisfied I've been in an exchange of Nessian,
Yes.
like in the
Nessian.
whole. Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Have you not?
No.
Nessian, that's
Oh,
who they
no.
are. I just love it.
Yeah.
Because I love Cassian and he's like
Cheeky.
he's like strong, but he's playful.
Yes.
And he doesn't fuck around, but he does. And he's like, he reminds me of my own husband, how the teasing, and I love it. But Nesta's finally cracked open.
Yeah.
She's finally cracked open. She's even letting other people see that she's like feels something. And whether she wants to admit it fully or not, she's admitted it enough that it's like obvious. Let's just talk about the other High Lords for a second.
Okay.
Because we need to like reestablish who's who in the zoo.
It's been a long time since they've all been together under the mountain.
It's very important that we just recap. So Tarquin. We know Tarquin. We love him.
Blank piece of paper.
Blank piece of paper. He is the High Lord of Summer. We've obviously got beef with Summer at the moment. So he's there. Bayron, the High Lord of Autumn. To put it plain and simply, we hope he isn't High Lord for much longer.
Yeah.
We know we need to move the chess piece so Eris is in the king's space at this point. So we've got Thiessen, the host. Dawn, delicious.
Yeah. Not very interesting,
We don't
really.
really know a lot about him,
No.
but he's there. And he's graciously hosting the meeting. Callias, winter, frozen in appearance, striking blue eyes, chips of the glacier.
Oh, God.
Amazing.
When you were talking about the imagery, I didn't know it was going to come from you. I thought it was coming from the book.
Body called me Sarah J. Maas. And Helion. Helion, we love. We love him. He's the Day Court High Lord. He's there. And then there's the pits of the pits.
The worst of the worst, High Lord.
The shittest of the shit, Tamlin. And Tamlin can eat a dick. Tamlin, if you're listening, go get fucked. You've been reintroduced to the High Lords of Prithian. Let's get into the meeting.
So, okay. I don't know if I can really follow that, but they do arrive at the Dawn Court.
Yes.
And Feyre describes the Dawn Court, essentially beautiful, fluffy clouds drifting across a cobalt sky.
Yes.
The palace is a near opulent golden stone that rises up into the clouds. It's everything you would imagine the Dawn Court to be. Right?
Reese is not happy at Feyre's ogling of the court.
No.
He's not.
Not at all.
He's not at all a fan of how much she is basically drooling over the interior designer of the Dawn Court.
Yes.
And she cheekily says something about the reflection pool, and she's like, I must have that.
Yes, she does. When they arrive, did you notice the Easter egg?
Tell me.
Okay. An attendant is waiting to show them the way to the chamber, where the meeting will be held. And Feyre glances back at Nesta and describes her as being just out of place as the rest of them.
Yes.
Because they're all very dressed in their night court attire. Like
Yes.
Feyre's wearing this beautiful, it's the Starfall dress actually that was redesigned.
Altered,
Yeah.
yes.
And Reese is wearing black and Nesta's wearing that deepest, darkest blue.
Yep.
The Illyrians are wearing their Illyrian leathers, which are
Yep.
black. Blah, blah, blah.
Bitses.
So she says she describes her as being as out of place as the rest of them, except for Moore.
Oh.
What does that mean? Does Moore look in place at the Dawn Court, does she?
So what is she wearing her signature red? I can't remember.
I don't know actually, yeah.
Okay.
But still then you wouldn't think like a bright ruby red would
that's not
also fit in at the
Dawnish.
Dawn Court.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, I just thought there might be a little Easter egg that maybe she's finds herself quite at home in the Dawn Court.
We know she's got friends here, but not specifically at the Dawn Court. But
She might, yeah.
yes.
Feyre notes that there's other places within Dawn's territory in small cities that specialises in tinkering and clockwork and clever things. And if you will remember, Lucien's eye has
Yes.
been crafted by someone quite clever
Yes.
in the Dawn Court. As they ascend the palace, they obviously get a semi-tour on their way to the chamber. Reese says to Feyre, "Tonight I want you to wear that crown to bed. Only
that crown."
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, good call. Good
At
call.
least she's clean this time.
She would have bathed, I'm sure of it.
Several times.
Surely.
Probably Nuala and Caradron had something to do with her cleanliness.
Correct. Yeah. So they arrive at the chamber and it's lined with like cushioned, comfortable seats. So there's Thiessen is there. Standing next to him are some winged fae.
Yes.
But their wings differ from the Illyrians
Yes.
with wings like birds, feathered, which immediately made me think of Draken's Legion,
Yes.
right?
And
they're feathered.
They are. They're descendants of the seraphim.
Yes. So Reese actually explains that they're distantly related and they provide Thiessen with a small aerial legion, which we
Yes.
didn't know. So that's news to us.
They're called peregrines.
Peregrines.
Yeah.
I feel like that's that, with the lion head, the body of a llama. No, that's wrong.
Stand by.
That creature with the
Isn't
head?
that a griffin?
No, it's like got the dragon. It's like three different animals squashed together.
Dragon, what does it mean? What is it? What?
Okay.
Dragon, lion, and what?
Lion. I feel like it's a lion. It might be a lion's body. It's a chimera.
Right.
Yes. So it's a lion's head, a goat's body, and a dragon's tail.
So isn't that what Bryce has as a pet in Crescent City?
Maybe. maybe. Anyway.
So, yes, the peregrines, they have feathered wings distantly related to the Draken's seraphim. And one of the male peregrines is the lover
Yes.
of Thiessen.
Yep.
Delicious.
So is this the first time we've heard of a same-sex couple?
I believe so.
No mating bond yet, but I think that Thiessen didn't dare acknowledge it while Amarantha reigned. She delighted in ripping out their feathers one by one. She made a dress out of them once. How very Cruella de Vil.
Very. Screams 101 Dalmatians reference. It does.
In the centre of the chamber is what's Feyre describes as a reflection pool, but what I picture it as is a koi pond.
There are some weird fish
There's
in there.
a fish in there.
Yes.
Right?
And they don't like the squealing.
No. No, we come to learn that. But basically, yes, I picture a koi pond with like big lilies in it and stuff and those big koi, like slimy. I don't like fish.
The interesting thing is the reflection pool is in place of what would have been a table.
Yes.
So instead of there being a table that they all sit around, they all sit around this reflection pool.
Do you think it's to stop, like over a table you could jump up on the table and walk across it and kick someone? But the pool, you can't. You got to walk all the way around.
You do.
So they're going to know you're coming.
Yeah. But also those with water manipulation powers have an advantage.
They do. So Thiessen turns his attention to Feyre and all of the inner circle bows, but she does not.
Yes.
He looks down at her tattooed hand and understanding dawns on him that she is indeed a high lady, not just the mate of Reese.
And she's owning it now.
She is.
It's great to see.
Callias now approaches second, describes him in much less detail than you did just before, so I won't bother saying anything else about that. She marks a young female still seated wearing winter court colours and suddenly Moore is squealing.
They have this little woo girl
Don't they?
reunion.
Yes.
It's like the quintessential cheerleader, see your bestie in a crowd and greet her.
Yes.
And the boys are like, oh my God.
It reminds me a little bit of when you got back from overseas and you came to work and I was there.
So it's Vivian.
Yes. So this is Callias's wife and mate.
Yes.
And he says, I tried to suggest that she stay home, but she threatened to freeze my balls off. And that really reminds me of Reese. Again, this is the second character that I have gotten Reese, like playful vibes from in relation to his mate, but then icy cold with anyone else.
The exterior.
Feyre smirks at Rhys after that little comment, but marks the way that Callias looks to Rhys, and she describes it as some sort of thread of tension going taut between them, which is really interesting. There's some history there.
Yeah.
Feyre reaches Vivian and introduces herself, and Vivian thanks Feyre for bringing her mate back to her. She explains that everything under the mountain was very different than it is now, and Rhys decides to interrupt and says, you know, you realise this is an important meeting. And Callias adds, and that the fish in the pool are very sensitive to high-pitched sounds.
Yes. Love that.
Vivian gives him a
vulgar gesture. And then Feyre and her are instantly besties.
yeah, vulgar gesture besties.
Love it. The thing that is important is that Vivian was not under the mountain.
No.
She was saved from being under the mountain, and she ended up protecting the Winter Court.
Yes.
And
She's bad.
she has respect for Rhys, but there's still lots of
Yeah.
not argy-bargy, just tension, like you
It's
said.
mentioned twice.
Yeah.
The other part of it is that Feyre just notices Callias looking at Rhys, and that it's just like a cold feature settling across his face. Apparently there had been tension with the Winter Court, specifically after Feyre and Lucian were rescued. And it's the second time that it's mentioned. And during this meeting, we do actually figure out what that tension is, but it is mentioned a few times. Feyre doesn't have a lot of time to think on that further, though, as someone very handsome arrives. Helion, the High Lord of Day.
Yes.
And the description of him is incredible. He's got like tanned skin. He's wearing a toga from what I can picture.
Yes.
And like she mentions his like powerful thighs. It's always the thighs. She mentioned Rhys's thighs too. It's always the thighs. What is it with thighs?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm just going to leave that alone.
She describes him as the sun personified, wearing toga-like clothing. Feyre actually reminisces that her father once brought back a pendant necklace from a southeastern kingdom where Fae ruled as gods, and amid swaying date palms and sand-swept palaces, the same necklace that Helion now wears. Ooh. Oh my.
Yes.
Oh my, oh my. So her father has very clearly had dealings with the Fae, specifically the Day Court.
Yes.
Oh my.
Yes.
The plot thickens.
I know. Oh, I don't even know what to say here, to be honest. One thing that we did not mention that is important just about Winter, the day that Callias came back to Winter from under the mountain, he proposed to Vivian.
He did, yes, yeah.
And
he winnowed straight to her.
Literally. Sorry, again?
No.
Yes.
Whoa.
And the mating bond snapped into place then as well. Which
Isn't that perfect?
I just love that.
Yeah.
Others in the room, Tarquin, Crusader and Varian are also there. Important because Varian tells us some things. And fucking Baron.
Yes, he does arrive. He arrives with his whole family, in
Yes.
fact.
4 of his sons. 4 of his sons.
4.
And his wife, Lady Autumn. And then someone else appears.
Helion doesn't give any greeting to anybody.
No.
All he does is look at Feyre and say, does Tamlin know what she is? No other greeting.
Oh.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
And then
shush,
Rhys
Helion.
says, if you mean clever and beautiful, then yes, I think he does. He clarifies and says, does he know that she's your mate and High Lady? And he says, if he arrives, I suppose we'll find out. His attention snags on Nesta, and I found this exchange really interesting between the two of them. He asks quietly, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy to ask something quietly, who is your guest? And before anyone can say anything, he asks another question and he says, who made her?
Yes.
So he knows that she's been human, turned into Fae. How does he know that?
Yes.
And also, who made her?
Yeah.
And it made me think,
not what.
Not what,
Yes.
yeah, but who.
Well, Nesta pipes up.
She does, yes.
And she is not fucking backwards in coming
No.
forwards. She's like, Highburn did.
Yes.
And Feyre says, this is my sister. She was thrown in the cauldron or something like that.
She had the cauldron juice bath. Yeah. She did.
The everything shower in the cauldron.
She did. She had an everything bath in the cauldron.
Absolutely.
Not a horse bath.
Not a horse bath.
Yes, and then poof.
And then
Tamlin arrives.
tampon arrives.
Yep. And he's looking terribly plain,
Yeah.
isn't he? Just wearing his green, I don't know what they call that
Fucking
thing.
boring.
Yeah, just nothing.
Just boring.
Nothing.
He's not happy.
He looks to Feyre and his lip curls.
I hate the lip curl.
Oh no, I love it. It's like
How does it go then?
no, I can't do
Oh,
it.
come on.
No, I might. No, I can't.
Give
do
it a go.
I can't do it. I can't. Ooh, you did it. I did like there was a little interaction between Eris and Cassian where like they're looking at each other and Eris just like taps his tummy where Cassian had obviously stabbed him. He's just like subtly indicating that he's ready for round 2 of their fight. And yes, old Tamlin arrives. Feyre feels each High Lord's magic snap shields into place around them, which is interesting because we just put the shields up before we talked. We didn't talk about that, but there is a moment before they walk in the chamber where Rhys says to her, shields up, and she knows that they've been up since Valaris.
Yes.
Anyway, so again, more shields. Tamlin approaches them and Thiessen rises to greet him. He's wearing usual green tunic but no other finery. And he sits down and his first words are, "It seems congratulations are in order."
Yeah.
That was quite an amicable thing,
not,
I thought.
I don't know that his tone says amicable.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah, I
Very
think
true.
he's being facetious as fuck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very true. They essentially ignore him and Rhys tells Thiessen that they can continue their discussions later because no one wants to say anything now because Tamlin's here. I mean, the meeting didn't start off well and it's gotten worse.
Yeah.
So
And they're not there for that.
yeah, that's right. And he talks about, he says, I'm not in the business of discussing my plans with enemies. And he's like, no, you're just in the business of fucking them.
Yeah.
Rude. He continues, if you hadn't stole my bride away in the night, Rhysand, I would not have been forced to take such drastic measures to get her back.
Interesting.
And Feyre says the sun was shining when I left you. It's quite a famous line from this series. But he does explain that he had actually planned to get around the bargain that he had made with Highburn and fight against them once he had gotten Feyre back.
Do you believe it?
Yeah, I do.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
I don't.
Don't you?
No.
Oh, no, I do. I believe that he doesn't want to enslave the humans again like his father did. He was very much against that in the first book anyway, and in this, well, we didn't see much of him in the second anyway. But no, I do believe it. But he does blame Rhys for starting the war, he says, because in the first place, because if he hadn't have taken Feyre, then he wouldn't have been forced to make a bargain with the king and now be the bad guy in everyone's eyes.
Yes.
But he does say, I bartered access to my lands to get back the woman that I love. And I just want to
Love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not loved.
No.
Love. He says that Rhys turned her into one of them and delighted in tearing his territory apart. Rude.
Yeah. This whole exchange is like quite tense, obviously. And it gets nasty. So the fact that he has the gore to say the woman I love and then in the next breath basically try to tear her reputation and credibility down,
Yeah.
I just don't believe anything he says.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that I think he's using the excuse now as like a bit of a scapegoat because he's like,
Poor
okay,
me.
I actually don't want to side with Highburn.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I need to come up with a story to cover my tracks when I believe what he did with Highburn, with the bargain, it was out of desperation for Feyre.
Yeah.
But now he knows that Feyre is not, it doesn't matter what he does. He's not getting her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So an argument breaks out where Asriel says, careful how you speak to my high lady.
It's the line in the book that nothing out of my mouth is going to sound appropriate.
I don't think anything out of your mouth sounds appropriate when it comes to ACOTAR anyway.
Yeah. I just love Azriel so much.
Yeah.
I just think he's the best character because he only speaks when he needs to. And
You're in.
I'm in.
Azriel's fear.
I'm in.
So Tamlin's pissed about Feyre's new title and tries to convince the other High Lords that Rhys and Feyre want to be king of Prythium, saying that they've seen Feyre's ambition and Rhys was happy to serve Amarantha and remain unscathed. Tamlin points at Rhys and asks the other High Lords how they could stomach working with him. And what he's alluding to is this tension with the Winter Court. So Callias looks to Rhys and Rhys looks at him in response to Tamlin's little ramble, and he just says, I had no involvement in that, none. Again, talking about this incident.
Yes.
Referring to he says, I tried to stop it. And Callias says, tell that to the parents of the 24 younglings she butchered that you tried. Callias is really bitter about Rhys's supposed compliance under the mountain. Rhys explains, though, that he tried to convince Amarantha killing Callias in retaliation to the Winter Court's rebellion would serve little purpose. So the actual incident that they're referring to is that, if you remember, under the mountain there was a bunch of Winter Court members who tried to rebel, and this is what he's saying, is Amarantha wanted to kill Callias for that, but he tried to convince her that that's not the case. And Beron says, who knew a cock could be so persuasive?
Yeah.
Well, have you tried it, Beryl? Because apparently it is.
It's the most handsome High Lord, Baron. Like, get with the program.
That's right.
He is persuasive, and lucky he was.
So Amarantha actually sent another Daimati with her soldiers to shatter the minds of the 24 children, but she wanted Callias to blame Rhys, so she kept him confined. And so it looked like he went with them because also keeping in mind, Rhys is the only other Daimati that we know about.
That's right.
And Highburn had access to the twins. So potentially it was them. But if no one else knows that there's any other Daimatis out there, although they're so few, as Rhys had explained last book, that Callias would think that he went with them and he did it.
Yes.
Vivian asked for confirmation where Rhys was actually confined to, and he answers her bedroom, which is really sad.
It is sad. And Feyre, she's noted to not even be prepared to hear that answer, but she knows that anyway.
Yeah.
But the fact that he has to verbalise it is quite traumatic.
Tamlin tries to continue to argue his point that Rhys and Feyre are scheming against them, essentially. He says, I'm simply warning you that they might present the guise of honesty and friendship, but the fact remains that he warmed Amarantha's bed for 50 years and only worked against her when it seemed like the tide was turning, which, yeah, I can see that. I'm warning you that while he claims his own city was attacked by Highburn, they made off remarkably well, as if they'd been anticipating it. Don't think he wouldn't sacrifice a few buildings and lesser fairies to lure you into an alliance, into thinking that you had a common enemy. Is that why only the Night Court got word about the attack of Adriata and were the only ones to arrive in time to play the saviour?
Enter Varian to save the day.
Yeah.
Because he confirms that he was the one who worded up Amren, who then told the Night Court to make haste.
Tamlin continues trying to tear down Feyre's integrity before his mouth just stops making noises.
I love this moment. What is it? The goldfish mouth?
Yes,
it
looks like a goldfish, yeah.
I love it. Silence.
Yeah.
Dickhead.
Yeah. I love the quote and I'll quote it here, that Feyre thinks about. So she says, brethren and yet not. Tamlin was a High Lord, as powerful as any of them, except for the one at my side. Rhys was as different from them as human were to Fae.
Yeah. She's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm a little bit like, don't tell him your goodies. Don't share.
Yeah.
Just continue to be powerful and live your best. Rhys does remind the High Lords that the proof of him not working with Highburn is the fact that it would just be so much easier to break into their minds and convince them to do his bidding, which is so true, right? They obviously have forgotten. Otherwise, they would know that Rhys would just do that. Tarquin acknowledges that the Night Court was the only one that came to their aid, regardless of the unsanctioned message. Little stab at Very in there.
Yes.
And he says, I rescind the blood rubies, let there be no debts between us.
Beautiful.
But Cassian says, don't expect Amren to return hers. She's grown attached to it.
True. Her paperweight.
Yeah.
Yes.
What else are you going to hold your paper down?
I know, right? The Book of Breedings relies upon it.
Yeah, that's right.
The next part's quite delicious.
Oh.
Not for more.
No.
Because she essentially gets called a slut by
Yes.
Eris. And Azriel blasts through his shields.
To the rescue for the second time in this meeting.
Tackles-
Asriel's holding the team together.
He really is. Tackles Eris to the ground and begins to strangle him.
Love it.
Yes. Never mind. I can imagine Cassian just like
yes.
watching.
Smug.
Yeah. So Feyre manages to get Azriel to actually stop. And
But she says she's fucking rude. She walks over and like places her hand on the shield and says, come, Azriel.
like a doggy.
Yeah.
Come at you. Well,
It's very rude.
but also
I thought it was quite rude. Anyway. It's not for me.
okay.
But she sits him down and pours him a glass of wine, which is
does.
nice.
But Azriel whispers something in Eris's ear.
Yes. I would love to know what he said.
Yeah. And then he's like, okay. And then he just goes and sits next to Feyre.
Yeah, that's right.
What? I need that,
Yeah.
Sarah. I need to know what he says because I can imagine it would be menacing.
Oh,
And I would like Azriel to whisper something in my ear. So Helian's looking at all of the information that Tamlin has brought to this meeting and he says that they should destroy the king's supply of Faebane. It's obviously wildly dangerous.
yeah.
And it compromises every single one of them. So they're like, right, we need to get to this supply and we need to get rid of it.
So they can actually fashion it into weapons or like impregnate it in the weapons.
Not a good enough reason to use the word impregnate.
What would you call it?
Lace.
Lace. Oh, okay, yeah, agree.
Yes,
that is
okay.
better. Yeah.
Let's lace the weapons.
And if you'll remember during the war or the battle at Summer Court, Rhys we were far too busy talking about a bath to talk about this bit, but Rhys had been struck by a javelin thing that had gone through his shield and cut him on his ribs.
Yes.
And Feyre had noted that that was his greatest injury. And so that was laced with Faebane.
Good.
And it had gotten through his shield.
Right.
And actually injured him.
Dangerous. So they need to get this to wield this weapon instead of the king. Thiessen brings in Newen, his most skilled craftsperson. She was the one who made Lucien's mechanical eye.
Yes, I knew it.
So
She's got a mechanical hand.
Does she?
Yeah, her right hand is solid gold.
I love this.
This is my left hand, just for reference, but a hand.
Okay,
It's her right,
a hand.
my left.
So Newen has found a solution to this Faebane and has created an antidote. So it's a powder that grants immunity from the effects of it.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Well done, smarty pants.
And now's the point where Tamlin and Feyre have an exchange. Tamlin essentially is blaming Feyre for turning his armies against him, which she did, and leaving his land defenceless, which they did.
She did. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
He says the village she wanted to help rebuild is now cinders. And I think that he knows that she would be affected by
Yes, that
telling her
village
that.
in
He is
particular.
out to lay punches.
Any pause in this conversation that they have is Tamlin being like, oh, I've got another point about why Feyre sucks.
Exactly.
Any opportunity to talk about himself, honestly.
And Tarquin is like,
Shush.
please,
Yeah.
and offers to take Tamlin's people into his court so they can evacuate. He's like, okay, I have a solution. Let me help.
Yeah.
Feyre then gets into a fight with Beren.
So Beren's actually a real asshole during this because he argues that his family won't take the antidote.
Yes.
He doesn't trust this woman who's come in with her middle hand. He doesn't trust he asks like questions where her parents are from. And so he actually thinks that she's been impregnated to the Dawn Court to try and give them this antidote, which would actually kill them all instead. Like, he doesn't trust where her loyalties lie, essentially. Everyone's very offended about that. I will note that Eris says that he will take it, and that Feyre wonders that if Eris had had a different father, if he would have grown up to be a decent male, or if one still lurked there beneath centuries of poison.
Ooh.
And I think she's right. Anyway,
Amen.
Beron decides he will not take the Spring Court's people, that he absolutely doesn't have the resources for that. They're far too busy shining the rubies in his vault to take care of anyone other than themselves.
He is such an asshole.
Beron makes it clear that he won't waste soldiers protecting the humans. And Feyre is rightfully very mad about that comment, even going as far as calling him a coward. Rhys says down the bond, easy, he's a cranky old bastard. And Rhys is surprisingly nonchalant about this whole thing, isn't he? Anyway, Cassian informs him that his armies will take time to raise and he doesn't have the luxury of waiting to decide if he's going to be on their side or not. But Beron says, I don't take orders from bastards of lesser fey whores. Scathing. Nesta comes to the rescue.
Yes.
She responds to him by saying, you know, Cassian may be the only thing that ends up in between your people and Highburn, so I'd be careful what you say. She didn't look at Cassian during the exchange of defending him, but Cassian looks at her as though he's never seen her before.
Sometimes I do things just for her reaction.
Literally.
Yes.
Tarquin tries to shh Beron before he really causes issues, but he continues, he's ploughing on.
He's on a rant.
Without it.
He's on one.
And he says, and now Rhysand wants to play hero. Amarantha's whore becomes Highburn destroyer.
Oh.
Yeah.
And Feyre reacts.
She does.
She blasts his own shit at him.
That's it for this episode of the Night Shift Court podcast. Join us again next week where we will continue the adventure of ACOTAR's Book 3, A Court of Wings and Ruin.
Whichever platform you're listening on, we would so appreciate a 5-star review. You can follow us at The Night Shift Court on Instagram, Facebook and TikTok.
I hope the night is kind.